know.
Oh, I bring hard.
Oh, yeah, well, Flair, look, I mean, yeah, Flair definitely. I mean,
He can say whatever he wants about me, but I put his ass to bed every time.
yeah. Oh, I believe that.
Because he's at 9 o'clock. Bo, come on.
What's up, YouTube?
9 o'clock. He's down.
We're
Last
just
night
goofing
he
off.
invites us out, right? So we get out of work.
Let's
We
see
had
what
a
I can
show
come up
last
with.
night. We
This
get
here
out.
guitar.
We text his the lady, his assistant or whatever. She's like, oh,
Who's that man? Who's the new victim?
her name's Gia. She's, I mean, I'll tell you this. She lifts chest a lot. I'll tell you that. I'll say that.
Typical Flair. I love it.
She skips arm and leg day, but she really. Yeah. And she said, oh, it's not. He just went to bed. You know, I just put him to sleep. But he lives that thing.
He usually sneaks off.
Yeah.
You'll be drinking at the bar, the thing he's going back and he'll come back. And then she's usually shoots down. So he's got it down. Believe me, I know.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Yeah, short story, Flair story.
Yeah.
In between back surgery number 4 or 5 or 6, whatever it was, I booked this Hulkamania tour. The first time I ever booked a tour on my own overseas, like in Australia. So I hired Flair and hired a bunch of wrestlers to come with me. Flair was like, I need my money up front. Okay, sure.
Probably for one of his wives, I bet.
He brought one of them with him.
Yeah.
And actually divorced right after.
He's always got a wife on him somewhere.
Yeah. And so I paid him up front. And all of a sudden I get ready to go to Australia. Oh, I'm back. Get us out of here. Now the tour's booked. I'm following Britney Spears around, dating her tour, picking up leftovers.
Yeah.
I thought, so my back, I had to have another back surgery right before I left. And I had stitches in it. Oh, still, that's how crazy I used to be.
Yeah, we tried to stitches.
You need to lay in bed about 6 months.
Yeah,
Back
I was like,
surgery.
fuck
I was
that.
going, let's go.
Wednesday, we're out of here.
Yeah, so I told Flair, yeah, thank you. So we get over there, and the greatest thing was the first night in Sydney, Australia. The Spears guy shot the crowd bird, right? So nobody came to the rest of the tour, so we bounced around and picked everybody up. And I wrestled Flair a bunch over there. And every night he'd come and he'd say, I need another $5,000. What? I already paid you. Oh no, I need another $5,000. I said, okay, here's $5,000. And then he kept doing it. I said, Rick, why are you giving me $5,000? You know, we're drawing such big crowds. You need to pay me another $5,000. So I paid him $5,000. I went down to the bar, he's buying drinks for everybody. I mean, paying for everything. That's what he's doing with $5,000. He's keeping everybody in the bar to party with him all night, you know? And he wasn't going to bed at 9 o'clock.
He doesn't like to be alone, he said. He said there's been times in his life where absolutely couldn't stand to be alone.
Yeah.
I thought that was interesting.
Yeah.
Because some people, they like their peace, they like their space. Yeah, he just, it was interesting even talking to him. He just is who he, it seems like there's not a lot of getting, he's just the nature boy.
That's who he is, bro.
That's who he is. It's very admirable and it's interesting, you know. But I mean, that is who he is. He likes to have a good time, and you find it no matter what, and he wants you to have a good time too.
Yeah. The only thing I can be all over.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that's why I can imagine, yeah, being a hero to so many people and how it is, yeah, to be able to then be a dad would also seem like tough, you know. What about, if you could, when you look back on kind of your career, because you've had a lot of different angles. You've had wrestling, you've had entertainment, right? You've had movies. When I remember seeing movies, No Holds Barred. That was fun. Why have you had better luck than some of these guys? Yeah. Yeah, I don't want to say it like
no,
that.
it's cool. It's cool. I think, honestly, if you stayed up 3-4 months in a row, I would still be there. Right, no deal. I would still eat the person. I think it's all true. Praying I wouldn't die. like, shut up, man. Yeah, but
We
yeah.
have to buy things at Percocet.
Yeah, whatever, you know, you come with
I mean, look, when they came out with Summer, dude, I'm gonna go hard when you visit yeah, it was very dangerous for them. But they would shut people's throats and my buddy Rick was out and took some chicken and he could kick some of the muscle wax and they like it hurt so much it doesn't pull the food down. A lot of people choke to death.
yeah, well, guys, keep the song shakes. I don't care what's all that.
Oh, it's still streaming? That's right. Okay. So I'm gonna look up the 4-note per string mode shapes. Modes. 4-note per string modes. Let me switch to the other camera. What is that? There should be a handy little picture. These are all the 3-note per string. Or that's the 3 4 4. It's 3 4 4 3 4 4. Huh. Yeah, this can get pretty complicated, I imagine. Well, what I'm trying to find is one where it's just the 4-note per string for each of the modes. Here we are. So this is for Mixolydian, because this is where I'm at with this shit. I can get the first 4 strings, and then I'll get to the B string, which is where the pattern always becomes weird, because the B string is up a half step, or it's down a half step from the in the interval sequence, and yeah, I fuck up there, so I gotta see it while I'm practicing, and I can commit it to memory a little easier. And if I think once I get to the point where I've ingrained most of the mode pictures, or not pictures, just the 4-note per string modes, then you start to see a pattern within all the 4-note, and you start to see the other modes in the other scales. So that's what I can do with the regular shapes in the 3-note per string. I can see the other scales within the other scales. But the 4-note per string kind of pattern is confusing in a way. So this one on the screen is 3 and 4, so it's 3 4 3 4 3 4 for Mixolydian. Let's just do that right quick. Right. Now I'm going to do it without looking at the picture. So that was me not looking at my guitar, that was me just looking at the picture. Now I'm going to do it just looking at my guitar. Oh shit. Oh no. There you go. So this isn't precisely what I'm looking for, but in the words of the Stones, something, something, try, find what you need. Alright, so let's just practice these 3-note and 4-note per string shapes. This is the same concept, but in Dorian, or the Dorian mode. Yeah, let me do that over. Get a mulligan. I'm gonna try this without looking. And yeah, so then there's little things. So right here, this little thing right here, the minor scale, the Aeolian that is comes from the 5th of the Dorian, or you could also say that Dorian is the fourth of the minor. But you can see the minor scale within the Dorian. Like we're starting here. When we hit this fifth, there's a little minor scale in there. And so I figure the more I practice this shit, the more you get to see the other scales inside of them. And naturally just know the pattern. So and here's, so this is what's good about the 3-note, 4-note, is that it ends right before the octave. Whereas the 3-note per string kind of ends like on like the third, I think, or like the second. And the 4-note per string, I'm not exactly sure where that ends, but 3-note, 4-note for some reason appears to end right before the octave. Which makes it like in physics, sometimes there's just like a very simple number, and it's like it boggles scientists. Like, why would it just be like in theory it could be like 1.759123333, but it just happens to be like, yeah, it's just one, or you know what I mean? It's like a cosmic coincidence. The second of the Dorian is the Phrygian. So that makes it the second is a minor, the fifth is a minor, and the third, and the one is a minor, right? So we're gonna finger some minors. Wait a second. Yes, right here. Okay, so watch this. This is Dorian, minor scale, Phrygian, wait, minor, Phrygian. Oh man. If you like persevere to this isn't just me throwing a word around, to an insane degree. If you persevere to an insane degree, then you will have results. It's my least favorite style of guitar. All John Mayer like and shit. Look up the 3-note per string pentatonic. Of course, this is only just one position. Alright, so we're just doing 3-note per string for the pentatonic. What would also be good is 3-note, 2-note for the pentatonic. 3-note per string for pentatonic is kind of similar function as the 4-note per string for the modal scales. It brings you all the way up to the top. So if you do 3-note, 2-note, it's kind of similar to the 3-note per string for the modes. So 1, 2, 2-note, 3-note, I guess. I wonder if they do have 2-note, 3-note written out. It feels like something I just invented. I'm certain it's not. pick my nose. Alright. So that's a really good 2-note, 3-note, because they do that in a certain position of the pentatonic where it's like only whole steps. So it's extremely easy to learn. That's only whole steps. Obviously, intervallically, there are more than whole steps, but string by string, you're only doing whole steps. Even though the string skips make it more different, but. Okay. Well, there are some sort of cheat codes because some positions are easier to play than other ones. And if you learn all the positions, that's good and all. But if you know the positions that are like, see, in skateboarding, we have this word called steez, which means style and ease. So if you do a trick, and the trick has style, but you're so good at it that you made it look easy, right? Some of these scales are steezier than other scales. And exactly, so in skateboarding, this analogy works perfectly. In skateboarding, there are some tricks that are hard to do, but they look ugly, and so people don't want to do them. That is analogous to guitar in some ways. Some scales are uglier than other scales, and some of them have more steez. Or it's not even just the scale in of itself, it's like the certain positions of the scale are steezier. Because this right here. Steezy. That shit's steezy as fuck. Alright. So let's just keep going with this scale work shit, I guess. Or maybe we should switch to something else like tapping or something like that. Like a technique kind of, or sweep picking. Everyone knows music is better when you're stoned. Say it with me. MARIGJUANA? Something shit like that? Yo, let me know in the chat. Should I start smoking blunts?
And come out to show them. Like open the bruise up and let some of the bruised blood come out to show them. And come out to show them. 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 Sometimes it might be 50 times. It can help you with your America's most bloody.
Creativity. It's a known fact that grass increases creativity from 8 to 11 times. In fact, everyone finds that they're more creative stoned than straight. So remember... M-A-R-I-J-U? A-J-U-A-N-A. Marijuana. Marijuana. Try to get to Doug's place. You know which way that is? Right on my... No, that can't be right. Straight.
Alright, I'm gonna try some of those burnt rhythm exercises. The most popular guitar teacher YouTuber. Or is he? Who even knows? The best one. I'd say he's probably the best one. Because he wants to teach you how to shred.
To record over 20 or 30
He's from
guitar takes
Switzerland.
about actually learning those patterns.
Oh yeah.
Trust me, it's not as
That's
hard
cool.
and crazy as it looks. Let's just start with the foundation with level number 1. So let's quickly talk about the rules of today's rhythm workouts. As you could hear, I was accenting the beginning of every new group with an open note, followed by all muted notes until the next group starts. This will make it much easier for you to understand the rhythms and to play perfectly in time, especially as soon as things get more complex further down the line. And since this is all about timing and rhythm, I'm just working with the low open E string for all of today's examples to keep it as simple as possible. Similar to the very popular rhythm challenges you can find all over social media right now, I also added scrolling some rhythmic notation on top of the examples, and the goal for you is to play them by reading the patterns. So this is not about actually learning those patterns by heart and just playing them from memory. You should always look at the notation in real time and actually read it to understand the note values that you're playing and all the groupings and small details.
It's one thing just
So
to
now
play
that we
3 and
successfully
4,
went over today's
it's another
rule
thing to
book, level
transition
1 is
between it
quite simple, and
flawlessly
this is the foundation that all
and
players
have
usually
mastery
start
of
out
that.
with. You will often need to switch between 8th notes and 16th notes in a practical context, especially with metal riffs. And this is already the perfect introduction to the main challenge of all of these examples. You want to play perfectly in time right after each transition. So you're not allowed to drag or rush just a little bit after each transition to a new note value. Most players are guilty of that, and they speed up too much as soon as it's time for a faster note value, like the 16th notes, for example. And then once again, they slow down too much as soon as they move back to the slower note values, like the 8th notes in this case. So this should be your absolute biggest main focus as you're moving through all of those different levels. Gets a bit more interesting, but I think this still should be manageable for most players. Once again, you very often need to switch between triplets and straight notes in a practical context, and the same rule applies. You have to nail the timing perfectly right after each transition, and that gets even harder right now because you're switching between different time fields, so between straight notes like 8th notes and 16th notes, and triplets like 8th note triplets or 16th note triplets.
Well, let's try going
a general tip with all of this is that I highly recommend recording your rhythm practice sessions in Cubase or any other DAW that you're using. That will show you immediately if you're rushing or dragging, in case you can't really hear it that well yet. But please make sure not to over-obsess with fucking numbers in order to get those awesome, tight, and super heavy riffs.
How about I just listen first?
Drummers are also playing in order to get those awesome, tight, and super heavy riffs. first real roadblock that players encounter once they get more into rhythm, quarter note triplets. You would assume that faster note values are actually much harder to play than the slower ones, but the opposite is often true. Really playing those slow quarter note triplets perfectly in time is a challenge that guitar players fail over and over again. What's the reason for this? Most people mistake the time feel right here with dotted notes. And this is what we actually want, quarter note triplets. Let's listen to it once again, back to back. So yeah, that does sound quite similar, but those are two completely different things. So to hopefully help out a bit with this very common frustrating topic, the trick and shortcut to playing perfect quarter note triplets is actually just thinking in eighth note triplets. Since one quarter note triplet takes up the place of two eighth note triplets in a measure, you can just think and count in eighth note triplets, but you're essentially always skipping a note. So it has really helped me to count and to visualize quarter note triplets like this. I'm actually thinking and counting in an eighth note grid in my mind, and I simply always skip a note when I'm playing, and that way I end up with perfect quarter note triplets.
I try to read and play along. Let's go back to the easy shit.
Especially with like the absolute biggest main focus as you're moving through all. Absolute biggest main focus as you're moving through all of those different levels.
Let's nail this shit. Nope.
Alright, now it gets a bit more interesting, but I think this still should be manageable for most players. Once again, you very often need to switch between triplets and straight notes in a practical context, and the same rule applies. You have to nail the timing perfectly right after each transition, and that gets even harder right now because you're switching between different time fields, so between straight notes like eighth notes and 16th notes, and triplets like eighth note triplets or 16th note triplets further down the line. A general tip with all of this is that I highly recommend recording your rhythm practice sessions in Cubase or any other DAW that you're using. That will show you immediately if you're rushing or dragging, in case you can't really hear it that well yet. But please make sure not to over-obsess with this. We are all human and nobody plays perfectly to the millisecond with every single note that you're playing in a song. Music definitely needs to live and breathe to a certain degree, but especially in rock and metal, you really need to lock in with the rhythm section, or especially with those bass drum patterns that the drummers are often playing, in order to get those awesome, tight and super heavy riffs. Alright, so this is the first real road. So yeah, always, and I and counting in an eighth note grid in my mind, and I simply always skip a note when I'm playing.
This dude Burns is a genius. He turns his YouTube videos into a guitar video game.
That way I end up with perfect quarter note triplets.
Right. It's so crazy because it's like the closer you get to understanding it, the more impressive it becomes.
Like,
wow,
you can just
shit,
think
now I get
triplets
it.
like this note when I'm that way I end up.
It's sometimes it's like I think a lot of times when you start playing guitar, for a lot of people, they don't think about like any of the whatever, they're like, oh, can I play like this song or whatever, right? But then slowly, like, you figure out, like, they'll think like this is a chord, and like, oh, well, arpeggios are chords that are repeated, and then like scales, like, oh, the major scale is like modes, 7, whatever, and then you get to actually look at other shit and like see how they're making that noise or whatever. Rhythm is its own complex fucking category that I've neglected.
And I simply always skip a note when I'm playing, and that way I end up with perfect quarter note triplets.
See, it's you always gotta practice the shit that's like just above. It's like if you can make the breakdowns more complicated at the very least. If I can because it's like I'm never gonna be a degent player. I'm never gonna be a degent guy. Like that shit. But if I can like internalize how they do what they do, then I can like compose shit that like builds to like a cool breakdown, even though it's not like that is not the whole genre of the song or whatever. It's so awkward, bro. He makes it so awkward. Yeah, like it flexes your brain in such a weird way.
Note when I'm playing, and
I think I have to go down a level. It's too tough. Or should I just say it out loud, like 1, 2, 3, whatever?
That way I end up with perfect quarter note.
Complicated. It's not even really, it's probably not that complicated, but it's just more than I think about usually when it comes to rhythm.
B riffs.
It's fucking ridiculous. You know what I can do though, is there's this handy little cheat code called half speed, or 7/5 speed.
In order to get those awesome, tight, and super heavy riffs. so this super heavy riffs. Riffs. Some patterns that the drummers are often playing in order to get those awesome, tight, and super heavy riffs. Alright, so this is the first real roadblock that players encounter once they get more into rhythm, quarter note triplets. You would assume that faster note values are actually much harder to play than the slower ones. For example, you want to play notation on top of the example. Okay, so this should be your absolute biggest main focus as you're moving through all of those different levels. Alright, now it gets a bit more moving through all of those different levels.
There are some good videos I remember that were like for how to play metalcore, quote unquote. I think that's kind of where a lot of this rhythmic kind of ideas are used similarly.
Slow down too much as soon as they move back to the slower note values, like the eighth notes in this case. So this should be your absolute biggest main focus as you're moving through all of those different levels. Alright, now it gets a bit more interesting, but I think this still should be manageable for most players. Once again, you very often need to switch between triplets and straight notes in a practical context, and the same rule applies. Alright, so this is the first real roadblock that players encounter once they get more into rhythm, quarter note triplets. You would assume that faster note values are actually much harder to play than the slower ones, but the opposite is often that the drummers are often playing in order to get those awesome, tight, and super heavy riffs. Alright, so this is the first real roadblock that players encounter once they get more into rhythm, quarter note triplets. You would assume that faster note values are actually much harder to play than the slower ones, but the opposite is often true. Really playing those slow quarter note triplets perfectly in time, or especially with those bass drum patterns that the drummers are often playing, in order to get those awesome tight and super heavy riffs. Alright, so this is the first real roadblock that players encounter once they get more into rhythm, quarter note triplets. You would assume that faster note values are actually much harder to play than the slower ones, but the opposite is often true. Really playing those slow quarter note triplets perfectly in time is a challenge that guitar players fail over and over again. What's the reason for this? Most people mistake the time feel right here with dotted notes. And this is what we actually want, quarter note triplets. Let's listen to it once. The time feel right here with dotted notes. And this is what we actually want, quarter note triplets. Let's listen to it once again, back to back. So yeah, that does sound quite similar, but those are two completely different things. So to hopefully help out a bit with this very common frustrating topic, the trick and shortcut to playing perfect quarter note triplets is actually just thinking in eighth note triplets. Since one quarter note triplet takes up the place of two eighth note triplets in a measure, you can just think and count in eighth note triplets, but you're essentially always skipping a note. So it has really helped me to count and to visualize quarter note triplets like this. I'm actually thinking and counting in an eighth note grid in my mind, and I simply always skip a note when I'm playing, and that way I end up with perfect quarter note triplets. I end up with perfect quarter note triplets. Triplets. So this level is all about syncopation and adding rests. Once again, you would actually think that adding rests makes things much easier since you're not playing as many notes. But once again, it turns out that this greatly complicates things because now the accents land on odd and syncopated placements within the measure, and it's quite difficult to constantly interrupt your phrases and your playing without tripping up. Once you try to play this level for the very first time, you will realize that
being able to play it is difficult.
With quarter note triplets. So this level is all
actually went a little better than I thought it would, but it's still not great.
perfect quarter note triplets. So this level is all about
that pause. That pause there is a very interesting little technique. Or idea. I don't know what you even call that. Good shit. Where is it? I've heard it's very metalcore to do that. Good shit. And so, oftentimes when there's like a specific sound, there's like some easy way to think about it that allows you to do it easily. Just like instinctually just waiting is one thing. You can kind of like accidentally wander into the thing, but understanding how to control that like little blah 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 this shit right here. There must be a rhyme and reason to it. But yeah, let's try this again.
with perfect quarter note triplets.
That shit bugs me every time. So he's putting these pauses in front of all the notes, except for this one right here, where out of nowhere it's like not paused. Being able to like make your brain wrap around the weirdness of this rhythm will like unlock some shit. I'm certain of it.
Note when I'm playing, and that way I end up with perfect quarter note triplets. So this level is all about syncopation and adding rest. Once again, you would actually think that adding rests
obviously, feel is what's more important, and it's like it takes way too much concentration to play that at this time, right? But with time, that sort of front can be opened up.
makes things much easier since you're not playing as many notes. But once again, it turns out that this greatly complicates things because now the accents land on odd and syncopated placements within the measure, and it's quite difficult to constantly interrupt your phrases and you're playing without tripping up. Once you try to play this level for the very first time, you will realize that we're all very used to playing accented notes exactly on the beat. And as soon as somebody takes it away from us and we have to work with more syncopated rhythms, we sometimes tend to feel quite lost rhythmically. So working with rests and with syncopated rhythms is a great rhythm practice concept that often gets ignored, and I highly recommend working on this instead of just focusing on those note transitions that we discussed with level 1 and 2. Working on this will also lead to more original rhythm and phrasing ideas in general, since we're almost all guilty of playing a lot of notes all the time. So adding some rests in odd placements in the measure of your riffs and licks has the potential of really spicing them up. Before I shock you with the really difficult level 5, make sure to download all of these awesome rhythm exercises in the form of super fun play-along videos, backing tracks in different tempos and also without my guitar profiles with full instrumentation, and also PDF tabs on patreon.com/Bernd. That way you finally have the perfect files and videos found on Patreon. Alright, so this is where things get a bit crazy, but as you can hear, it's tons of fun to work with quintuplets or...
Tool did some interesting shit on their newest album, most recent one. I think like Adam Jones, like Denny, what's his face? They're kind of at the, they didn't really like, they're still improving. Unfortunately, Maynard's getting old.
Septuplets or with those really
Yeah,
fast
same.
note value changes. Notice that I was still playing in 4th practice. Alright, so this is where things get a bit crazy, but as you can hear, it's tons of fun to work with quintuplets or septuplets or with those really fast note value changes. Notice that I was still playing in 4/4 for this last example, and the drum beat was actually also quite simple. It's just a regular rock beat, aside from the bass drum pattern that was mimicking the riff that I was playing. So with this example, I wanted to show you that you can come up with really crazy and complex rhythms without even using odd meters like 7/8 or 11/8. You can also do it in
all of that. It's not been my area of focus, so I'm not really sure how I would get into it. Like,
Sahara Galt here, and we're going to do advanced
this is advanced
practice,
rhythm training,
spanning all of the
interactive
fundamental
practice.
one-beat figures, as well as their syncopated variations, and 16th, 8th, and quarter triplets. If you're unfamiliar with any of these rhythms, I've covered them all in my previous rhythm videos, so check those out. We're also going to introduce one new figure, the quintuplet, which is dividing the quarter note up into 5 pieces. You might find this a little daunting at first, but it's worth realizing that if you're already adept at dividing the beat into 2s, 3s, 4s, and 6s, you just need to learn and get comfortable with the feeling of 5. So, it goes like this. Da 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 da. Da 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 da. Right? You try it. And hear it one more time to check. While quintuplets might be less common to come by, they can begin to feel as comfortable to perform as any of the other subdivisions of the beat you're familiar with. And once you have them under your belt, it's interesting to see how they bring this perspective warping effect to rhythms based on other subdivisions of the beat around them. Let's hear quintuplets next to 8th notes. Notice how it makes the 8th notes sound like they have a lilt. And against triplets. And by now, I bet the quintuplet is already starting to sound natural to you. And we're going to continue to work it in the upcoming exercises to totally secure it into your rhythmic vocabulary. Let's generate a couple bars of rhythm that'll include a quintuplet. Okay, ready, go.
Alright, I think this dude has good videos, but I might have to go to the beginner noob shit at rhythm, beginner you suck rhythm training exercises instead of the advanced ones. Okay. Perfecting rhythm. This is playlist. Play any rhythm easily. Perfect your timing and sight reading. Oh, perfect.
Hey, Sahara Galt here, and I'm going to show you a trick that can make even complicated rhythm patterns easy to think about. We're going to start with a quick recap of the basic units, and by the end, you'll be sight reading rhythms. Here we go. In rhythm, it all comes down to the beat. When you're listening to a piece of music and you experience that underlying pulse, which makes you want to tap your foot, that's typically what we mean when we talk about the beat. And we're going to get into the most common ways you can subdivide one beat to give us the very building blocks of rhythm. So rhythm can become this simple and intuitive process of arranging already familiar pieces. And thinking this way makes rhythms more concrete in your mind It'll help you decode and play new ones more easily. And it makes the experience of rhythm in music even more profound. So very often, the beat is designated by a quarter note. Think of it like the fundamental unit that we're going to use to derive the others. Start by tapping your foot or clapping along with the beat. This way, you're sure to always be feeling the beat in your body. And we're going to vocalize all the rhythms, so let's start with the quarter note beat itself. Da, 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 da. We're using this syllable, by the way, because it has a percussive, clearly defined attack. And we're just trying to memorize the abstracted feeling of each rhythmic figure. So changing numbers or syllables, as is common in rhythmic counting, is actually not very helpful for this and can be a bit of a distraction. Also, don't worry about sustaining. Think of the sound you're making as a drum hit. Okay, you try it. Keep tapping your foot or clapping and vocalize da on each beat. Easy enough? Now let's subdivide the beat into 2 equal parts. We call these eighth notes. Da, 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 da. Now you try it, vocalizing eighth notes while also tapping or clapping the quarter note beat. Here we go. Now be careful that you didn't change your clapping or tapping of the beat to match what you were counting. You keep tapping even quarter notes, and you vocalize the rhythm itself. Okay, let's keep going. If we subdivide the eighth notes in half, we get 16th notes. The beat divided into 4 even pieces. Da 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 da. You might notice that I'm emphasizing the syllables that occur on the beat. This is important. Where the emphasis falls changes our perception of the figure itself, even if it's using the same note values. Okay, your turn. So you have to vocalize a lot of syllables there, but keep yourself anchored, thinking about evenly spacing the 4/16ths across the beat. If you find you're having trouble staying locked in with the beat, that you sort of drift away from it, don't worry, that's not uncommon at first, but keep at it. This is a skill that gets better with practice, and you vocalize the rhythm itself. Okay, let's keep going. If we subdivide the eighth notes in half, we get 16th notes. The beat divided into 4 even pieces. Da 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 da. You might notice that I'm emphasizing the syllables that occur on the beat. This is important. Where the emphasis falls changes our perception of the figure itself, even if it's using the same note values. Okay, your turn. So you have to vocalize, even if it's using... Okay, your turn. So you have to vocalize a lot of using the same note values. Okay, your turn. So you have to vocalize a lot of syllables there, but keep yourself anchored, thinking about evenly spacing the 4/16ths across the beat. If you find you're having trouble staying locked in with the beat, that you sort of drift away from it, don't worry, that's not uncommon at first, but keep at it. This is a skill that gets better with practice, and when you're recording in the studio or performing with other musicians, remaining steady with the beat is just non-negotiable. You have to be able to do it. All right, moving on. We can mix and match eighth notes and 16ths to fill out one beat 3 different ways. Eighth and 2/16ths. Da 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 da. You go. We can do 2/16ths and an eighth. Da 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 da. Give that a go. And a 16th, eighth, 16. Da 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 da. Now get this one going. Now we're gonna do a couple dotted eighth note figures. Eighth notes take up 50% of the beat, and when you add a dot, they take up 75%. To make a one beat figure with this, we add a 16th note. Da, 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 da. And you try it. And of course, we can turn this around, so it's 16th dotted eighth. Da, 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 da. And you give it a go. Now, all of these resolve down to a basic subdivision of the beat in twos or fours, but that's not the only way we can subdivide the beat. Let's subdivide it in threes. This gives us triplets. Dot, 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 dot. Spacing out three notes evenly within one beat. Here we go. Dot, 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 dot. Spacing out three notes evenly within one beat. Here we go. Nice. Now you just performed the 9 most common one-beat rhythmic figures that exist. In fact, simply by arranging these 9 figures in the right order and with the appropriate use of rests, you'll be able to perform a staggering number of guitar strumming patterns, piano, bass, drum grooves, vocal melody rhythms, the works. Think of it like the fundamental clapping along with the beat. This way, you're sure to always be feeling the beat in your body. And we're gonna vocalize all the rhythms, so let's start with the quarter note beat itself. Da, 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 da. We're using this syllable, by the way, because it has a percussive, clearly defined attack. And we're just trying to memorize the abstracted feeling of each rhythmic figure. So changing numbers or syllables, as is common in rhythmic counting, is actually not very helpful for this and can be a bit of a distraction. Also, don't worry about sustaining. Think of the sound you're making as a drum hit. Okay, you try it. Keep tapping your foot or clapping and vocalize da on each beat. Easy enough. Now let's subdivide the beat into 2 equal parts.
So these are supposedly the most common, what are they? What did they call them? Note beat? What? Rhythms? So they're quarter notes, half notes, dotted eighth notes, triplets, and then in this section he like mixes and matches them and like makes these like combinations.
It's what you want.
Where does he say that these are the most common?
Okay, here we go. Done. Generating. We get your pattern. Let's dot 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 figures. Now you just performed the 9 most common one-beat rhythmic figures that.
The 9 most common one-beat rhythmic figures. See, my rhythmic vernacular is lacking compared to my notational vernacular.
That exist. In fact, simply by arranging these 9 figures in the right order and with the appropriate use of rests, you'll be able to perform a staggering number of guitar strumming patterns. Be able to 9 figures performed. The 9 most.
Let's go through these. That one's the quarter note right there. This is the half note, and then those are the triplets, right? And the dotted eighths. There is no dotted eighths. So I guess I'm kind of confused, because what the fuck are these things? Okay, this is quarter, half, and those are eighth notes. Quarter notes, half notes, eighth notes. This is triplets, alright? So we know 4 of these. I think I know what dotted eighths are, but I don't know if they're showing up here. Let's see him explain what dotted
take
eighths
up 50% of the beat, and when you add a dot, they take up 75%. To make a one-beat figure with this, we add a 16th note.
Okay, I see. Oh, I get what you're saying. Alright, that makes sense.
Patterns. Piano, bass,
So,
and
alright, so that means that this,
in fact,
that is a dotted eighth, half note, eighth note, quarter note, triplet. So we know 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of these. Now what the hell are these right here? Okay, so I guess this and this, those are both dotted eighth notes, but they're like, the emphasis is on the other note. So those are both dotted eighths. So we know 3, 4, 5, 6 of these. But these three,
moving on. We can mix and match eighth notes and sixteenths to fill out one beat 3 different ways. Eighth and 2/16. Da 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 da.
an eighth and 2/16. What?
Eighth and 2/16. Da 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 da.
I see. So it's an eighth note and alright, and that takes up one beat of the measure. So if it's like 4/4, it's like divided into 4, right, beats, so to speak. And then so these are all one beat measures. So that is one, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. So it's a combination of an eighth and a 16th note. I'm starting to understand what these squiggly lines mean.
Are strum with the appropriate.
Alright, so then 1, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 1. So that's an eighth and a 2/16. That one's 2/16 and an eighth, and that's a dotted eighth where the emphasis is on the first note, and that's a dotted eighth where that's a dotted eighth where the first note is dotted, and that's a dotted eighth where the second note is dotted. And then what the hell is this thing here?
Da 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 da. 16. And a 16th, eighth, 16th.
16th is
Da 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 da.
Oh, that's odd. That's not right.
Da 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 da.
So, yeah, that's kind of like the same feel as that other thing, but the eighth is in the middle, and so if you were to start it off, it goes. As opposed to going. So it's like little details like that for rhythm that I guess I don't pay too much attention to. I just kind of get into the feel of it.
Da da. And with the appropriate use of rests, you'll be able to perform a staggering number of guitar strumming patterns, piano, bass, drum grooves, vocal melody rhythms, the works. So let's do a quick roundup of all the figures we learned. Repeat them after me. Da. Da da.
Da, 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 da.
Da 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 da. Da da da. Da da da. Da da da. Da da. Da da. Da da da. Great. Okay, now that you've got all of these figures in your ear, let's play a game. The rhythm machine is gonna generate a 4-figure pattern for us. Okay, there it is. Perfect one to start on. Think back to how each of those sounded. Now do it. And here's what you want to have done. Da, 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 da. You've got the hang of it. Let's do another. Let's see what we get. All right, here we go. Did you do this? Da, 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 da. Let's go again. Generating.
Stupid.
Cool, here we go. And to double check, sounds like this. Da, 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 da.
It's like,
All right, we're
it's
gonna
like
do
all
one
of a
more,
sudden being
but it's
at
gonna
the
be
beginner
longer.
Again. You're like, you suck.
Let's see what the
all that
generator
going
gives
basic
us.
shit. You're like, I know I should do it, but I can't. Like,
Okay, here we go. And did it sound like this? Da, 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 da. With the, okay, here we go. And did it sound like this? Da, 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 da.
yeah,
da,
I think
da,
most
da,
of this
da,
shit,
da,
it
da,
kind of helps
da, da,
through
da,
like,
da.
in like an
da.
osmosis kind of way. Like,
Nice.
you're just naturally
Now you
gonna
know how to
have
perform these rhythmic
ideas of
figures
triplets
vocally.
and dotted
And for an added
floating
challenge,
around,
try them again
that would just
while
naturally
incorporating
affect
melody
how you
or playing them on your
intonate
instrument of
your
choice.
notes.
All right, that's it for this time. Any questions? Ask me in the comments. Subscribe so you catch my future videos. And special thanks to my patrons who made this video possible. If you want to be a part of bringing more music tutorials into the world and
Well, I guess I've been streaming for 2.5 hours.